Okay,
All right, we'll consider ourselves called to order for the March meeting of the Calvert City Planning Commission. First item will be the approval of the minutes from our February 16th meeting. You have those in front of you. What say ye?
I've reviewed the minutes and make a motion, we accept them as presented.
Motion by Gary to hear a second.
second.
Second by Joel. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed by like sign? Now be the approval of those minutes. All right, John, you want to lead us?
I'm done.
Okay.
That's it.
Back last year, Brad's favorite House bill was passed, House Bill 160. And that House Bill 160 basically came in and changed our statute on manufactured homes, KRS 100.348. Make sure I'm on the right one here. Changed it to require a qualified manufactured home. And let me reiterate, that is a term that we utilized. It's almost the same term that we utilized back when we were doing a Class A manufactured home. However, there are differences, and it is now no longer up to us as to what zone it can go into. It's allowed in any zone. A qualified manufactured home is allowed in any zone in which we allow single family dwellings. Okay. Now, that includes everything but HOC zones or LU, correct? So the HOC and the LU zone out around the interchange and out toward the park, that's the only zones that are, it's not allowed. Of course, we don't allow single family dwellings either. That being said, some by matter of right, some by conditional use. However, that being said, they gave the individual zoning the ability to make some calls. And a lot of it we were allowed to make calls on or the areas in which we could make calls with the roof pitch, the square footage of livable space, the type and quality of exterior finishes, foundation skirting, existence and type of attached structures, if we so choose. All those were allowed. They also set conditions that for a qualified manufactured home, which are, you don't have those in front of you, I don't think, unless you got it from last month. There's minimum standards that the state sets even before us. And it has to be 20 feet wide. At its narrowest, it has to have a minimum living space of 900 square feet. Let's see. It has to meet our setbacks and the lot dimensions. And again, then we come back and can add hours. Okay. Now, what we've done is we've tried to sit down, because this basically tells us that we have to treat them almost as the same as a regular home, stick built on site. The problem of it is how do you not hinder or discriminate against them? So if we're going to do this, we have to set the standards, not just for the qualified manufactured home, but also for other homes in that district. Okay. Now, we can do minimum standards, which is what I would propose if we do something like that. We looked at, and I looked at what Bowling Green in Warren County was doing, and that was far more restrictive than what we're looking at. Okay, they had to do 3 of 6, and that meant a 412 pitch, an attached porch. What was it? And one was an attached garage, 2-foot overhang on the roof. They had to have there was 6 of them all total. And they had to have 3 of them to add in for it to meet qualifications. That was quite expensive for someone to have to do that. Roof pitch of 412 or greater, covered porch of 24 square feet or greater or more, offset of 2 foot, on your exterior wall, 5 or more corners on your foundation, attached garage or multiple finished floors. I know the Pentagon is a strange shaped house, but that was a flat fiber minimum, okay? So I got to thinking about that one myself. Most of them are gonna have, if it's an L shape, it's gonna have 6, but anyway, it had to have 3 of these. Okay? And that, I don't even know if we want to put that kind of standard on our own homes, on a stick built or on-site home. Need to say it was well thought up, and for them in most of their areas, I think that was probably a decent way of doing it. I think that one of the things they were trying to do is they didn't want to just say it had to be a gable roof. And they wanted to have some expression you could throw in there. With us, we looked at the pitch as, regardless of whether it is a slant roof or a gable roof, the pitch is the pitch. It doesn't have to matter if it's a gable or slant, you still can do that. Matter of fact, we actually have pictures of one here that meets that standard, that's in the city right now.
This is a modern home. Somebody brought this up in the last meeting. So even though if we do just a slant roof, pass it around, it's still, we can get them in. But I drove through the city and found there's 6 or 7 properties that are variations of this, very, very flat, the old school type roofing. It is out there, but someone had mentioned we didn't want to be so restricted. What if we could or could not do a modern? So the first one going around is a modern, and then this is very similar, but there's only like 5 or 6, so there's really not much restriction.
I found out one of the reasons why you have a minimum of 412 pitch, and I can't remember if it was in this meeting or something else. Someone
No, I don't think that's what he's saying. He's just looking.
Your
at
your
it.
412 pitch minimum requirement is because of shingled roofs.
You reckon that?
Shingled roofs, I think, maybe you said something about it. There is a warranty apparently that if you don't have a 412 or steeper pitch shingle roof, then your warranty is invalid on your shingles.
It wasn't me who said that. I don't know. I didn't know that.
So, I don't know, I can't remember who it was. It may have been somebody in building codes that told me that. But they said on a shingled roof, it has to be a 412 pitch, or else they will not invalidates your warranty, invalidates your warranty.
Recognize that one.
So I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm just saying that's what somebody with some construction knowledge told me. So I'm quoting that individual.
Well, by the same token, John, today I just thinking a little bit about this, did some Googling, and just the typical pitched roof is 412. The most common roof is 412.
No, the most common for a stick built house
Yeah.
now is
According to
612 or better.
According to Google today,
And they changed it then
still
the last time.
yeah, so again, so
Well, I mean, honestly, the house across the street from me is going in at 512.
yeah, I think most houses are
And,
way
you know,
above that.
most of them are
I was
gonna be,
surprised to see that it still showed it at a 412 as a typical pitch. So
Yeah.
most common pitch.
well, maybe, I don't know.
412 and still.
Yeah. You still got the 412 though.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're looking at what, we made some suggestions to by the district, have some standards that we could go by that would be realistic. R1 and R2 being our biggest single family, R3, I can say that either R3 is actually our biggest single family, but it also allows other things. But R1 and R2 are most common in the single family dwellings. And they've got the room. And so one of the things we looked at was, and the other thing in doing research, we've got a handful of houses that are in R1 that are not in a subdivision. That are not in Royal Park, Kingswood, Shadow Ridge, or Huntington Creek. Most all of our R1 are those subdivisions right there, and their codicils deal with the manufactured home, period. Now, I will tell you that whatever we do, if someone comes to get a permit from us, we will advise them that you need to make sure you understand the codicil, that you're not allowed to do this, but I cannot say I'll turn you down for a permit. But you can go through this permit process, and then you'll have to deal with the people that live there and their lawyers. So that's the only thing we can do is just advise him that, you know, you might want to check on the codicils before you jump on this gun, but I cannot as a city, we cannot as a city turn them down for an R1. Just because the codicil says that they can't. We can warn them. That's the best I can do really in that case. But the covenants, the individuals, the subdivision, if they've got that in writing and stuff, they have the ability to say, no, we cannot. We don't have that option. We do not have that option. Okay. So that being said, we sat down and we went through our current ordinance dealing with definitions, the zones, the 4 zones that were specifically, and then actually 8.10, which is our manufactured housing. Okay. I'd like to start with 8.10, which is on page 3 of your 4-page handout. What we did is we went through and we actually pulled the text out of the ordinance and looked at making changes or recommending changes. And this is all up for grabs. And this is not a public hearing. This is trying to get some idea of what you guys want to see so that we can have the public hearing. So one of the things that we looked at, mobile homes, and I will backtrack on that one. Mobile homes are our Class C. And you look at on the very first page, the definition, where am I at here? Mobile.
Yeah.
It uses mobile home a lot, but mobile home was built before 76. Manufactured home was built from 76 on. We, since 2017, have not allowed a mobile home to be brought into the city and set up. It has to be a manufactured home. My thing is, let's get rid of the word mobile. Just get rid of it and make a statement. Then again, this was a recommendation by our attorney that we actually just state in Class C in a one right at the very bottom of that one, since it's on the last page. Very at the very bottom. That's the same definition, and then add the sentence, since 2017, these structures are no longer permitted to be placed within the city limits. Now, so that people don't make any misunderstanding, just because we say that doesn't mean that everybody has to pick up their mobile home and leave the city with it. That's not what it's saying, is if it's burned, if it's destroyed, that can't be replaced. It can't come back. They can come back with a manufactured home, but they can't come back with a quote unquote mobile home. Okay. So what we did is, in the statement of purpose, there was a correction, striking of in the first sentence, and then striking mobile from the manufactured parentheses mobile. All right. Then the classification of a manufactured or mobile home. Again, I would still say strike mobile, period. All right. Class A would be replaced with the term qualified manufactured home. And then it goes into the definition. And in that one, we've added the Kentucky Revised Statutes 100.348. which is actually where you get the definition of qualified manufactured home. And it has to meet the certifications of those and all of the following additional classification standards, which we will now go over. No changes to A. It has to meet all your requirements for lot, yard, building, and other requirements in the district. No differences there. Some language in B and we're going to go back, and the only thing we would do there is make all of it kind of fall in line, where it's all shall be or shall have or something like that, instead of being random. So it shall be placed on a continuous skirting encompassing the perimeter of the home, and we use the word skirting versus perimeter or foundation. Because we cannot require a second foundation, although it basically looks like the foundation, okay? All houses, stick-built houses are gonna have a block foundation or concrete foundation. And so we want it to look the same way. Okay? Perimeter of the home, in parentheses, reasonable crawl space access instead of opening as per Kentucky Building Codes accepted. So in other words, Kentucky Building Code says if you have a crawl space, it has to be a minimum 16 by 24 or 18 by 24. So that's just a standard crawl space. It's basically saying you have to have a crawl space that size or larger. And then of course, constructed brick, stone, block, concrete, or other materials commonly used in construction of on or site-built residences in the subject neighborhood. C, again, instead of just be anchored, shall be anchored. That's again, and then we're referencing and in accordance with Kentucky Revised Statute 227.570, which is the requirement on setting up a manufactured home. That's the standard. All E, D, E, and F are all the same. Have the wheels, axles, and hitch mechanism removed. That's a requirement of a qualified manufactured home. It has to be removed. Utilities connected in accordance with the city's requirements and manufacturer specification. Siding material of a type used on site constructed residences extending from the floor line to the roof line. G, now this is where we get into roof pitch. Originally, we just had a 4 inches of rise, okay? But we looked at doing this where, okay, this is not a correct one. But I didn't print the right one again. So anyway, with that, okay, what we were looking at, no, this right. I'm thinking, all right, the roof pitch, to be 5 inches of rise, for every 1 foot of horizontal run in an R1 and R2 district, and 4 inches of rise for every 1 foot of horizontal run in all other allowed zones. Okay. So we have a lower minimum from R3 through industrial and business. But in the residential R1 and 2, they'd have to have at least a 512 pitch or better. And utilizing roof materials of a type used on site constructed residences. Okay. In other words, they can't have aluminum wrap over the top. It's got to be an actual roof. Now, we don't have any regulations prohibiting metal roofing. Okay. I don't know that we want that, but that's just so you're aware of it. We're also looking at sort of like standing seam and stuff like that too. So, minimum, again, this is actually a law or a regulation that they put in this definition. It has to be a minimum of 20 feet measured across its narrowest portion. And that's our language. And then then the other is 2 stories in height. That's an option. The home's front entry shall be oriented so that it faces a public street. In other words, you can't take a narrow lot and put a long one in, an 80 foot and a 51 foot wide lot. You can't run it in this way and come out the side of it house on the side lot. You have to face the entrance to the public street. I mean, we require that of houses now. So, and that's also required by statute, not just us, but by statute. All exterior doors must be provided with permanent access structures. And when I say permanent access structures, that has to be something that is built and has a foundation, not just a set of stairs you put out there in front of it. Okay. When it says permanent access structure, that generally means it has a foundation of some sort, or it has an in-ground support. And if they're made from wood, like a deck, it's going to have in-ground support. That it has to be permanent. It can't be something can readily just be picked up and moved. Okay. Landings, porches, etc. constructed of concrete, brick, stone, block, wood, or other materials commonly used for the purpose of construction of site constructed residences in the subject's neighborhood. Or in the subject neighborhood. Now, one thing that we don't have that is required is manufactured on a date not to exceed 5 years prior to the date of installation. That's a given. They have that, and that's. Now, the K is an addition, complete addition. That statement was not in there part of this. It's been added because that was one of the statute the definitions. L is what I really would like for you guys to consider. And think about, and whether we need it or not. I don't know that we do need it, because the minimum standard for a qualified manufactured home, period, is 900 square feet. And if you want to leave it at that, that's fine. I don't have any bark with that. Minimum, a lot of people are saying we want to put a living square foot minimums. And that's one thing that they allow. I just threw some numbers in here. R1 at 1,500, R2 at 1,200, R3 at 1,000, and R4, or all other allowed zones at 900. It's not necessary that we do that. It's something we can do. Now, that being said, also, like I said, most R1s have, are in a zone which would actually require the house to be in the R1 zone, have required to have a minimum square footage. Now, I've got a handful that do not, that are in there. It's along 95, and those houses are smaller homes. But they're in an R1. And if we do it that way, those homes will have to come back. If they have a fire or something that damages more than 50% of that home, they've got to come back to the Board of Adjustments and ask for a variance to rebuild their home the way it was. Okay. So that's something to consider there.
But that would be a valid way to do that.
It would be a valid way to do it. It's just going to be another process.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not we need to do that process, I don't know. In most cases with R1,
Not gonna be an issue.
it's not an issue
Right.
whether we set a minimum or not, because 900 is a minimum. They're not going to make it into a subdivision, because the subdivisions are going to be much larger than that.
You
But
know,
whether or not we set that standard is not really,
it does.
it's questioned whether it's even needed.
I disagree.
Well,
Because what we've got to deal with is those things outside of a subdivision. Because we can't control the subdivision, but what we can control is the city. So we better look at that. To my mind, that's what we need to do, is put some square footage minimums on these different zones. Because if
okay.
we don't, we don't have a leg to stand on if something comes in those lots that are outside of a subdivision. And I would say, to save us a bunch of grief, because we've already got into this before, when sometimes the HOA agreements are not really enforced until it becomes an issue, and then it's a big hubbub. But if we've got that as a minimum, that would kind of grease the skids to maybe prevent a problem before ever even coming into a subdivision, wouldn't it?
Well, that's a possibility, yeah. Well, to speak to those, and like I said, I had a phone call about this. And I did some research just to be on the safe side. And yes, a non-conforming structure that was built, as these houses were built in good faith and
Right.
fine at the time they were
Method of
built.
zoning is requirement at the time.
They are what everybody would refer to as grandfathered, although
Right.
that's not an actual lit term. But the term would be a non-conforming structure. If something were to happen to them, and that's right now under section Article 5.4 sub B, they have the right to apply for a variance and have it been. Once that variance is in there, that house is in there.
Right, right.
So that
So,
is an
I mean-
option that would be an option for us.
That's really, if the fire were to take it or destroy it by storm,
Mhm.
they would have to file for the variance, and we've got
To be able to build back the same
Adjustments.
size that
Yeah.
that they had.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
again,
To do that.
Yeah. That makes
again, you
sense.
leave it up to the Board of Adjustments to make that call.
Right.
It's not an automatic thing.
Right.
Okay.
Got a question, John. It's been a while since we talked about tiny homes. I hate to get off subject, but does this square footage match what we were talking about?
most tiny homes are somewhere under 600 square feet. So
Okay.
no, it doesn't match. I mean, even you'd have to go back and you know, and then again, 900, this may be, are you making it for everybody or just making it for the qualified manufactured home?
Okay.
Which is a minimum 900 regardless if you put anything in there. Now, again, a lot of these homes may be smaller than that. And one in particular is something around 750, 800 square feet or.
Right, so. So technically, we could set our minimum smaller than 900 because the manufactured home is already stopped at 900.
I think we push ourselves into a corner if we do that. I think that, I don't know, legal would have to talk with that. I mean, we're requiring,
Or we set no
Right.
standard, I guess we would set no standard on that zone,
yeah,
possibly.
yeah.
Well, my question is with a tiny home, I mean, I understand it's not the quote unquote manufactured home, but isn't it a manufactured home? It's gonna be off-site built and moved to a
No,
site,
no,
right?
Not
no.
always.
We dealt
Some
with
tiny
that.
home, they're building
I know where you're
off-site.
going.
There are some,
Mark.
but we're not.
Okay,
I know where you're going, but remember, we went back several years ago when they first started coming out.
yes,
Those that are on a trailer are considered RVs. And those that are stick built on site, which you don't get many of, would be considered legally as a house. A site built house, and they were good. We didn't have a minimum standard. If they were built on a rolling chassis, they were an RV and had to go to an RV park. They couldn't
Okay.
come to a home and set up on a lot. So yeah, I know where you were going and that,
Yeah.
yeah.
So how consistent are these square footages in these zones now?
Say again.
So how consistent are these minimums like today? Like if you, and now you may not know this, but like if you had an average of all the homes in R1, how close are they to 1,500 or more? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. You got something there. I'm gonna let Troy work on. He's been doing some research on that
So I
for.
went and pulled what I could find just quickly.
Mhm.
And for example, Huntington Creek and the neighboring subdivision, Shadow Ridge, they share the same subdivision restrictions. So theirs is a minimum of 2,000 to 2,300. And then they actually have the most restrictive in our community.
Mhm.
They have up to 24 restrictions, and they specifically state no mobile homes,
Mhm.
et cetera. Green Meadows subdivision, phase 1 in Royal Park is a minimum of 1,200 square feet, and they have a total of 11 restrictions, one excluding mobile home, et cetera, that they would have to enforce. The other one that I found is Camelot. Theirs was set up quite uniquely. They have like block numbers, for example, minimum, say 1,200, block 2 is 1,300. 1, 3, and 11 is 1,400. So they had certain areas with
zones within there.
Yeah, and so they went up to 18. So they were a minimum of 12 and they went up to 18. That was on the first. And then on the second, it was changed for the second part of this. They initially had 1,200 and they changed it to 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
So I don't know how many homes in there are actually at 1,000, but the common, I mean, Camelot kind of covers the gamut of 12 to 1,800. And then the other,
You weren't able to find Kingswood, were you?
So to say, do you find Kingswood? I haven't seen ours in ever and ever.
Do you remember what your minimum square footage was in Kingswood?
It's been a long time ago.
Okay.
yeah,
2,000 maybe? I don't know. Might not be that much.
that's all right.
Like I said, it varies. And
not
that's
just-
one of the reasons I prefer not to go too high with that simply because I don't want to overstretch what they've got. I mean, I'm sitting here saying it has to be 1,200 square feet and I've got a subdivision that said, no, it doesn't. It has to be just 1,000.
Yeah.
So that's where I get into a situation that I want to make sure that when we don't get into something where we're in conflict again on that.
Actually, Joel's side of the street would be another one of those not technically in a subdivision, correct?
Yeah, it's not in the original Kingswood on that side of the street. I don't know what he's in.
So, but I mean, if you look at those now, was,
I'm a stone throw from you.
I know.
was Camelot an R1 or R2?
R2.
Okay. What was the smallest? Was 1,200 the smallest in an R1?
No. The R1 was 2,000. Now, no less Green Meadows Royal Park,
Right, they went down to, what you said, 1,200,000?
they were
1,200.
1,200,
So that's the smallest.
Yeah, the only
Okay.
1,000 that we got.
That was in
would be the
Kingswood. I
smallest.
mean, Camelot.
Yes, was
was
the
R2.
second phase.
The block, there's blocks.
Yeah, because the original with all the block, the way it's worded with, it is 12 to 1,800,
Mhm.
depending on which block. And then they did an addition, Camelot 2 subdivision addition. And they changed it. They, instead of doing it the way they did before, they just initially they put just 1,200 and then they redacted it and went to 1,000 square feet. So it's very small area.
Yeah.
Within that neighborhood. And it is an R2 though.
May have been 18. Now that I'm thinking about it, but like I said, it's been a long time.
So would you consider going to the minimums that we found for those particular zones? Right now, we're showing 1,200 as a minimum for R1. And 1,000 for a minimum for R2, and then go to just 900 or whatever the absolute minimum to the rest of the zones.
Two offers. I will just write it on.
R3 is one of our biggest zones.
I got you.
As far as residential, R2 and then R3.
And R4 really was. We still had R4 because we needed a spot to say that manufactured homes could go.
Yeah, those days are gone.
Mhm.
Manufactured homes actually are allowed in business and in. I think I have to go back and look at that. Qualified would be allowed in any place, everything but HOC and
Little use.
I stole your book.
Yeah.
You noted that, did you?
Yeah, that's fine. You can look it up.
Yeah, I just had just my own little research that I did, but
It'd be good. to-
okay, sure, no problem.
Thanks for that. It's okay. Yeah, it'd be good to
I
have.
can
it
go
out.
make y'all copies
Still
of it. even.
conservation, so.
Everybody
okay.
wants to.
Be good.
Well, Class B are allowed, right now, what we consider
We've got one, but I'm
manufactured
not
homes
sure.
allowed in
It was
R4
closed,
and
so I don't know if
I1 and
we-
I2.
what we-
After we.
Yeah,
finish.
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I just.
But really,
took
should
it
that
upon
language
myself
be
one
removed?
day to-
Huh?
I felt like
Should
this
that
was gonna
language be
covered in
removed?
here, so I went and put it all together.
As a part of this?
Well, there's a difference in manufactured home and qualified manufactured home. Anything that's not qualified would be just a manufactured home. Single wides, double wides that don't meet a standard for qualified. Any of those would be listed and eligible in those areas.
A big key, manufactured homes is what, June 15th of 76 up to current.
Yeah,
And a qualified manufactured home is within the 5 years. It can't be older
With all
than
the
5 years
standards.
with all the new standards.
Hey, Troy.
Thank you.
Oh,
And
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
That's Fifth Avenue, right?
And, or would you want to, from R4 on, would you, where the last one shows,
Okay.
it says in there, and 900 square feet for all other allowed zoning districts? Would you care to reduce that even down to? If it's a qualified, it's gonna have to have the 900 to be
Yeah.
qualified. But if you want to reduce this down to 600, giving tiny homes more of a chance to get in there too, I mean, we could do that as well.
I don't think so. I mean,
I'm just not throwing it out there.
yeah, no, I think if that's the number for qualified manufactured home, I think 900 is that's my opinion, but.
Well, I mean, it's gonna be hard to get in a non-qualified manufactured home in the zones like that, the R4, the industrial or those areas.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I'm throwing that out there. I mean,
Well, yeah, because the lot size
Right.
is gonna
yeah,
change.
generally that's too small.
Yeah.
You know. But even with them, well, we're not requiring them to actually, at this point, we're not requiring them to have a street facing. I don't have to go back and look at that. I don't think we've got a street facing requirement on manufactured homes. Do we have that on? I'm asking you, and I got the book in front of me. So I'm trying to see if if we orient the house, the old front door of the house to the street, a public street.
It's that big Camelot with it.
I think it specifies it specifically.
Were you editing this one?
No, I'm talking about just for manufactured homes or any other home. I can't remember if we had something in our ordinance that said we had, it seemed like we did, but
Well, I think it's like she
I know it
said.
says so in here, but I'm talking about like houses and manufactured homes other than qualified. So right now we have had for forever mobile homes that have gone in on a narrow lot and they're in there lengthwise. And so they come out into a side yard, the entrance is. And I don't know that there's anything that prohibits that or requires it to be to the street other than what we've got here on this new one. There is anything.
Don't remember that in any discussion, do y'all, about the facing?
Oh, well,
Yeah, I like that.
generated employment, that's business.
Wellhead production. Right, yeah. It's like.
I don't see anything at this point, but that doesn't mean that
It's not
I've
right.
missed something.
It's not.
But with this going in, it would require, we would go back and look at, and again, that moves us on over to the residential zone additions on your first page, starting there. All orientation would be that way. We added 5, 6, 7, and 8 to each one of these. In section C, which is the standards for each. And again, the living space, we still have to come up with what you guys decide on that one. But I've got 512 pitched roof for zones 1 and 2. And all of them will say that the front entrance shall face upon a public street on the orientation. So every one of them requires that. All zones, all residential zones, let me back up. All residential zones require that. The standard's not there for industrial. R3 and 4 require a 412 or greater pitch. And then again, the square foot minimum, if you guys are gonna add that.
All right, so on the square foot minimum, if we switch to match the subdivisions, then that changes R1 to 1,200.
1,200.
From 1,500, and then
It would
1,000.
go from 1,200 and then R2 would be 1,000
1,000 and then 900 on the last two.
and then 900 on the last two, yeah. That way we don't get in conflict with subdivision
Existing.
regulations. We'd also change the language on these to, in section L to be, reflect the same. 8.10B. B1 L.
So when Camelot did their secondary subdivision, and they had the original as 1,200 square feet, and they just left it instead of doing by block. Just to look at the date, they went ahead and asked the city, they spoke to the city at some point because it was in front of the board, which is noted, and that's how it got changed to 1,000. So they let them, and that was in 1986. So that was where the smallest square footage came from for that particular
And
area.
that one's an R2, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the
it's
original, when the original Camelot was developed in those times, if I remember correctly, it was an R1 in that era of it, but it obviously got changed in currently R2. If that. There might have been another subdivision as well, like Green Meadows, Royal Oaks, or Royal Park, excuse me. But they used the same exact, it was just copied almost.
Where was Green Meadows?
It's next to Royal Park, if I remember right. It's over here. This is where that showed on the old, it's old from the old plat. It
Okay,
wasn't,
I was say, I don't even remember,
but it wasn't, because some of this wasn't, it said phase 1. So
I mean,
the,
that's not Joel's in.
but yeah, it was 1,200.
Okay.
And then the way they worded, one of them actually had modular home, but on say Royal Park, for example, this says all dwellings shall be constructed or used only for single unit occupancy, no building, shed, trailer, mobile home, barn, basement, or other structure of any temporary nature shall be used as a residence at any time. So they didn't mention modular in there, but one of the others did.
Well, again, we went back, just to refresh your memories, and I think you may well remember, manufactured homes are built to the housing and urban development standards. Modular homes are built to Kentucky building codes. In the state, they're built to our building codes, the state's building codes, and they're built off-site just like these are, but they're also shipped in pieces. You might get 3 or 4 pieces come in on the back of a trailer that's craned into place. But they are also built, like I said, to the Kentucky building codes as opposed to the HUD standards. So they're different standards. Now, both are getting closer and closer. And we've seen a surge, just FYI, we've seen a surge of what looked to be just on the roof line, a number of modular homes, or I don't know if they're not modular home, but manufactured homes. Like I went over and in the Gilbertsville area, not Gilbertsville, Draftonville area, and there was a location there in Draftonville that, or just outside of Draftonville. I don't know if you can't say in Draftonville, I don't guess, because it's not really incorporated, but somewhere in that neighborhood. And
This is getting confusing.
somewhere between us and Benton, okay? There's a little location that's surrounded with, there's a school in it. And anyway, they had a number of these on their lot. They're not, you didn't see as many of the old fashioned. You were seeing more of these, what looked to be manufactured or qualified manufactured ones with the steeper pitch roofs, double wide, and, you know, looking like they were ready to sit on a block foundation and roll. So they're actually starting to bring them in and actually produce them at a greater quantity, it looks like.
Okay, what does this do to multifamily dwellings that would go into these locations?
This only applies to single family dwellings. There's no exceptions made for multifamily, period.
So when we switch to a multifamily, so if I want to build my duplex and,
You have to build your duplex.
but do I have to? Yeah, I understand that.
Okay,
I'm not
alright.
saying the manufactured home stuff.
Sure.
But the regulations that we're placing on them as far
The
as,
Square footage.
as far as square footage, pitch, roof, you know,
Yes. The pitch roof would have to be your minimum square foot of the
I mean,
house.
it's probably gonna be, but it's.
Total living area,
Total
not
living,
necessarily
right, but okay,
individual.
but if I wanna build one like that's on the corner of the 2-story flatter roof, you know, I mean, I'm still,
You still got the same pitch to deal with, yes.
You're specific
We
on.
can't
where-
require it of one and not the other.
now, the square footage shouldn't be a problem if I'm building.
Yeah,
Basically.
if you build a duplex,
if I'm
that's not a
building
problem.
Duplex, it's gonna
And the
not be a
pitch
problem,
is
but
whether it's a flat roof, I mean, not a flat roof, but
if I'm
a
building,
flat roof.
if I'm building an,
Gable.
if I'm building a complex of apartments, then that's probably gonna be a whole other story.
That'd be a different story. I think that's gonna be a different story. That's not a single, a lot of this is dealing with single family dwellings, okay?
That's why,
And it's not-
that's why I'm
and-
trying to
and
expand.
You're
the
right, and it
conversation
may be
because
that. it
As
has
we
no
allow
bearing-
multifamily
It
dwelling.
may have, it has no bearing
Be
on the other.
hindering any multifamily dwelling building
But,
by putting these regulations in. It's
well,
all
one
I'm
of the
looking.
things that you're getting into is you're now starting to get into aesthetics. We started that back in B2. When you started reviewing the elevations of B2, we stepped off into aesthetics. And we do aesthetics when we do development plans. So now we're doing aesthetics or have to do aesthetics in residential to some degree. Not a great degree, but some degree. So, you know, it may be that you require that type of roof for something, one of those things. Now, again, when you get into something that's 2-story and multifamily, that's not addressed. It's really not, like you said, it's not really addressed with any kind of multifamily, be it duplex or larger.
It's
not
not,
really
it's
addressed.
not addressed, but would it not be held to the same standards? Because the standard doesn't. I'm putting my multifamily dwelling in a place where it can go, so an R.
And R2 is the only place
R2,
you can't put a multifamily in an R2. You can in an R3. You can, all right with that? I know you can put a duplex in an R2.
Conditional use in R2, R2.
Yeah.
Matter of right in R4. Not that there's room to put one in our R4.
Duplex is a conditional use in R2 and a matter of right in R3 and 4.
Yep.
Yeah, only a single family dwelling is allowed in R1. No others. R2, you have to have a conditional use for anything other than a single family dwelling.
So realistically, Darren, the only thing that would maybe touch that might be the roof pitch, and that a 412 roof pitch even on a duplex would not be,
Still.
that's not, I mean,
On a duplex, that would still.
that's more than normal.
Hmm.
I don't think you're doing anything that would be restrictive of someone wanting to build one. Because they're already going to exceed the square footage requirements if they're going to do a duplex. It seems to me that this is a good way to protect the existing homeowners in areas and also meet the state requirements to allow manufactured homes. I mean, there's some give and take there, but I think that's a good compromise of a way to do that, to give us some say on the type of manufactured home that can go into certain zones. And I don't think we'd be doing the citizens. We wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't do that, I think.
Well, I guess then, because we've only been dealing with manufacturers, or not manufactured, but single family dwellings. That's all we've dealt with on this one. We haven't delved into duplexes and definitely not into multifamily. This is just solely single family is all we've been dealing with. So just so you know, that if you want us to apply some of that to duplexes, we need to know. Or if you want to consider it more before you do that, then that's fine too, but. I see where you're coming from and it makes sense.
Well, I mainly just don't want to hinder it.
Yeah.
Granted,
So the
It's-
state
it-
law,
Yeah.
the way it is under KRS 100-348, it'd be 3A, when it ges very specific, John keeps going back to single family. So it's very specific, it excludes qualified manufactured homes from any residential zone where single family residences are permitted. So it's very particular, single family are permitted.
Right.
So
that's really
under
all
the
we're
state.
dealing with at the moment.
That's why it's,
That's something we have to deal with because it's gotta be going into effect July 1. So.
So John,
Yes, sir.
walk us through what's the steps of this? Is this considered a public hearing? And is this a text amendment? What is it? How does this?
Well, this is a text amendment. We'd have to go through a public hearing to discuss the language changes and what we all have decided. And this is a start because this is what Ashley will work with after we
Right.
get done with this meeting to go back and come into and go through the recommendations and take comments from the public at our next
Right.
meeting, okay? From that, if there's no changes, you'll make the recommendation to go to council. Or if there are changes, we've got what changes we need to make, so we can then go to council. And then they will do the 2 readings for the ordinance. Because if we don't do it, then they can do, as long as it meets the state statute standard, it's a matter of right, and I have to go in. So if we don't get our in there in time, then boom, we're stuck with whatever that meets the state standard. That may not be what we want.
What do you need from us?
So going through this once more time, are you guys okay with the definitions the way we've presented them? Dwelling single family, dwelling unit, and manufactured home park. We don't even have one in the city, but if we ever did. And then I understand in R1, you want the square foot, everything is good, the minimum would be changed to 1,200 square feet minimum.
That's what we're going to.
R2, it would be 1,000 square feet minimum. And R3 and 4 would both be 900 square feet.
Right.
Then the other changes that I saw to 8.10 are subsection B, deleting mobile from classification of manufactured homes. And then over on L.
Well, and I would,
Go ahead.
wordsmith, this, what Greg would do, but to your point, you mentioned about on all the A, B, A through
Yeah,
everything, doing,
make
starting
them
with
all-
shall.
Sure.
So I think all of those should start with shall, not just,
Okay.
so shall meet requirements and all that down through
Okay.
there should be, start with shall.
Shall.
Right.
We talked about that.
Yeah.
And then if
D1.
it's a repeat, If it's a repeat of the, what's in the Kentucky statute, do we want to repeat?
I think we need to, a lot of people, in this particular case, I think we
Easier
need to.
to get through.
Yeah, because we have some of ours in there and some of theirs in there, so I think it's a one go-to place and it's easier for people.
That's good.
I agree.
I agree, yes, you should be able to go look it up, but we're trying to make it easier for the
Right.
working, the public.
Public's not gonna.
They don't.
So if we don't, we'll be telling it to them and we'll be doing it, so. And then so L, and that one would be also changing the minimums, 1,500 for R1, 1,200, I'm sorry, 1,200 for R1, 1,000 for R2, and 900 for 3 and 4, or all other districts. What I'll probably do is just strike that and say 900 square feet for all other allowed districts and leave that other section out, okay?
All we're intending to include section B is 2D, or do you not have statute in front of you? 'Cause you may not, but I just wanna make sure we're gonna include this, the CARES.
Okay, you don't have a mic, so I need you to speak up a little bit.
If we're gonna include the KRS requirements, I just wanna make sure that we've included all the ones we've intended to include. Is that just D?
Is that just what?
Is that just D? It doesn't make my voice any louder, does it?
It does.
It does?
But, yeah,
Okay.
your voice is so light. I'm just trying to make sure the microphone hears it.
So in the statute, it's gonna be past July 1. I just wanna make sure we include everything we're intending to include, and I think it's just D. Is that right? That's all we have in there. The rest of it.
What document are you using? I can't tell.
There is, are you talking about the qualified manufactured home meaning?
Means, and then I wanna make sure that, because of what we said, that we didn't wanna have it in two places, that we have everything from the KRS and this. That we intend to have in there.
As far
And I
as
think it's just D, I think, 1-4,
the definition,
which is the 5 years.
Mhm.
Permanent foundation with the 20 feet at smallest for 2 stories in height and minimum total living area of 900 square feet. But is there anything?
900 and what?
900 square feet,
Okay, yeah. Yeah,
and then it describes what a permanent foundation is, but I don't know the. We have to put all that in there.
no, but the subsection D 1 through 4, that encompass the entire meaning, is that what you're?
Yeah, I just wanna make sure that we've got everything in there. If we're gonna put some of them in there, I think we should put everything we're intending to put
Yeah,
in there,
all one
you know.
That we need to pull from the
We need to
statute.
pull from this.
Yeah,
And I'm
as
saying
far
it
as the
should be
definition.
1-4, but I just wanted to be sure. It looks to be.
things will change also on the application. Because now we'll require an elevation, probably a floor plan or layout and as well as an elevation shot or of the building. So we can tell what they're gonna do and make sure that it meets the standards. So there'll be changes to the application based on that.
And I'm thinking on G, we should add in the subject neighborhood at the end like we have on J to make it consistent. Talking about the roofing material type. It was just a thought that I had when you read through there.
Mhm.
Like that one, did you?
So the language is,
That was all paperwork. That had nothing to do with us.
so the language areas,
So it's-
I mean,
Yeah,
yes, I see what you're saying.
yeah. And it's, instead of just roofing material on all site constructed residences, it limits to the subject neighborhood, which I think probably is better. And that's in J too, so when it talks about the permanent access structure.
Look back, Ashley, at F, you may need to do the same thing in F too. Cause it kind of talks about site constructed residences. You know, talking about the siding material.
Yeah. Site constructed residences.
Yeah, it's just,
Subject neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will also tell you that, I know you guys are working on that, there are several bills right now that are out there that are being put out. There's several, there's a core of representatives that are basically trying to strip cities' ability to run their zoning. And they're trying to pull our ability to regulate different businesses. One of them being automobiles and repair shops and such, et cetera, et cetera. And so what I'll do is I'll send you out some information on which bills are out there and ask you to oppose those as a zone. We know what this is for. We know why it's here. It's the safety of it. It's not just, financing is, the financial portion of it is definitely there, but it also the safety. I mean, you know, if it came about, you all remember from fire, they killed a bunch of people, but they're wanting to strip. They seriously are making a big effort to strip a lot of the zonings and planning commission's power and the board of adjustments power as well, and what they can and can't do. So I'll send you out some notices on those and maybe some summary, so you'll see what they're doing. And I encourage you to say something if you wish to your
Kind of amusing,
representative.
though. I think every training I've gone to since I've been on the commission, David has done the training. And one of his opening statements is
Mhm.
the Kentucky legislature finally did something right. So now they're going to try to change it.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
I mean,
See, that Kentucky was ahead of the game, and Kentucky's been ahead of the game in planning and zoning for a long time.
yeah.
He said, but you're always in danger when they're in session.
Exactly right. He's a prophet.
Yes. Okay.
Y'all see more comments? Anything else? John, I think you did a good job here. Troy, y'all did a good
Thank you,
job.
guys.
The staff did a great job doing the research too.
Something to shoot at. All right, anything else?
St. John, just repeating, if somebody on these, one of these, like R1, we're talking about this houses on 95. Something happens, they could apply for a variance to go back just like it was, and it's not gonna be an issue.
Well, it's a variance, and you know, I don't have control over the board of adjustments does. But yes, they can. They have a remedy. Yes.
I have to talk now to Darren.
And Gary.
Gary, he's the main one.
Well, people gonna talk nice to Gary, they'll
Yeah.
talk nice to Darren.
I think those I had here.
I had a question the other day,
But I'll be.
and people in town are following this. And the question was, say, they had concern that if I have a manufactured house come in my neighborhood next to me, is that gonna affect the value of my home? Is that gonna lower my value? Y'all have any opinion on that?
Well,
I
again,
didn't
well,
know.
I
Gary-
think that's why we've got to do something like this.
Yeah.
Because we've got to set some minimum standards for those so that manufactured home that
I
comes
know I'm
in
working on.
kind of looks like the house it's coming in next to. Because that's my
You're not-
concern is
You're
that.
not, remember, you're not bringing in manufactured homes to every area. So when someone says manufactured homes, they're thinking about the Cracker Box.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's what they're thinking. That's not what you're bringing in.
They live in the Heights, you know, and they were just,
I understand, but what
Yeah.
you're bringing in is something that's gonna look like a house.
okay.
Now, it may look like a ranch, but
Well,
it's gonna be a house.
it will
It's
if we do what we're talking about.
Yeah, and you got standards there that'll keep it
If we did
looking more
nothing,
like what's
yes.
built there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing.
And the one thing about these new homes that they have, is they're built, I mean, of course, they've been built this way a long time, but they're built 16-inch centers. You know, they're built like our houses, like a stick belt house. But some of the things they did some shortcuts, which are now becoming more options. And you can also add on to it. In other words, if you bring one in and later on you say, I want to put an addition. What's really said, it's like building on an addition to your house. I mean, it's a little bit easier than it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not.
But I assume the other question would also come is, what does the appraiser do to it as far as if it were to sell recently before your house went up for sale and the appraised value of it? And
Yeah,
Well,
Whether
they
the appra-
claim, I'm just going to what they claim. I can't tell you.
They,
I don't know. But the appraisals are equitable.
so, I mean, that
That's
would
what,
be,
that's
that
what I
would be the
hear.
question.
Like I
Yeah.
said, I'm not an appraiser. I cannot tell you that. But because if you're setting the standards that make that look like a house built on site,
That's a house.
yeah.
that appraisal standard or appraisal should be higher than just if you brought one in a double wide and dropped it right there.
But that's why I think it's important for us as the city to have some minimum standards. So that we're not depending on the subdivision regulations,
Yeah.
but in the heights. That the homeowners that are there beside this guy that comes in, would kind of protect them too.
Okay.
And I think that makes it, whatever they bring in is gonna look pretty much like the houses are sitting
Right.
on.
So should not have lower their
Right,
value.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, we're.
I'll reassure the
controlling
people.
about the propane that we have access.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Right.
what we're doing
We're
here.
doing
Yeah,
You know.
right. All right. I hear motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
And a motion by Brad, a second by Joel. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Meeting adjourned at 6:37.